Hi, my name is Morten, and in this video we will be looking at payment methods for the storefront. So here we will be able to list the available payment methods for the visitor, let him choose whatever payment method you wish to pay with, and then continuing on to the next step. We can also, of course, let the user go back and forth. So when he sees the page where he has already selected the payment method, we want to take that into account as well. And as always, I've used the CMS to bootstrap my page. And in this case, our payment controller is the one being called via the CMS. And then we can use the Ucommerce APIs in here to grab the data that we need and convert that to the view model that we want to present for the visitor. This is business as usual. We've done this a bunch of times before already. So there shouldn't really be anything new in here regarding that. I have included transaction library up here in the top. Again, we've seen that a bunch of times. We grabbed that from the IC container, and we can now use that in our controller. So the first thing that we need to do is grab the available payment methods, and then we'll build up from there. Surprisingly enough, the API that we need to use on transaction library is called get payment methods. There's a bunch of optional parameters, like we can pass in a country, which allows us to narrow the available payment methods based on that. By default, Ucommerce will use the billing address for that, which means that whatever country he selected there will be used to filter on the available payment methods, as well as the store. We saw that in the previous video where we saw how we could maintain and edit payment methods for the back office. So payment methods here is really just how do we want to pay: credit card, invoice, mobile pay, whatever option that exists out there in the market. Here we're not really collecting the money, we're just letting the user choose how he indicates an intent how to pay. That's what we're doing on this page. We want to show a preview page before we actually check out the customer and let him pay for his order. We have the available payment methods now, so let's try to just map that. It should be fairly simple. We need to do one thing in advance though, which is we need to see if the user has already selected a payment method on his order, because then we want to pre-select that in the UI, so we don't have to select that every time you go through the checkout. This can of course also be combined with the single page checkout. Here we just focus in on selecting one payment methods on one page. So that's it. It may feel a little clumsy. It can of course be done in a more elegant way, in a more modern solution, but this is just to keep it as simple as possible. So let's try to see if we can find a selected payment method. The way that we want to do that is by calling get basket, and we want to pass in false here. Remember that get basket gives us the order from the database, and we don't want to create a new one. If we create a new one here on this page, we will probably get an empty basket if someone just tries to ping that page. We do expect that the basket exists at this point. So now we have the basket, and we can peek at the payments on the basket, and then just grab the first or default one that we can find, and get the payment method. So this can of course be nullable, so let's take that into account. And the object that we get back here is a payment method coming on the Ucommerce entities v2 namespace. So this is information directly from the SQL server. This is not coming from an index in the current version of how Ucommerce works. So now we may or may not have a selected payment method. This is null if we don't have anything. So now we can just iterate the available payment methods and then check if the selected payment method is equal to the one we're iterating, because that means we can pre-select that in the UI. Good. So we need to create a new view model. we will be doing a select list item here, and the text should really just be the name of the payment method. And the value in this case is what we post back, and in this case it should be the payment method ID. We need to pass that to string, and then we want to have it pre-selected in case that it's the payment method that we have up here. We may or may not have that. So we're gonna do select the payment method not equals null. No, actually we don't need that. We can just do equals here. Like this. So the object reference will be the same coming from in Hibernate. So that's fine. So now we pre-select that in case that it's the one that the user has already selected. So now we are presenting the data for the user, and when he clicks on next step, we will hit the post method down here, where we then need to create the payment for the order on behalf of the customer using this payment method. The way that we do that is fairly simple. We really just need to call create payment. Create payment takes in the selected payment method ID, so that will be persisted on the payment. And in this case, we need to pass in -1. This indicates for Ucommerce that the amount needs to be calculated based on the order total. In some cases, you're interested in creating split payments or a payment that is somewhat special to the order. So by indicating -1 here, it says to Ucommerce, please just adjust the amount on the payment here so it matches the order total. And then we have two optional parameters here again. Request payment, we want to have that as false. Request payment would request it immediately, meaning that the user would be redirected to the actual payment gateway. We want to show a preview page first, so we'll leave that blank. And override existing, we will set that to true, which means that all payments that has not somewhat been authorized, acquired, or something like that, which means it's a stale payment, all those will be removed, which means that every time you go through this payment check, we will not have more and more payments associated with the order. We'll just have the one. Of course, we're not interested in removing payments that has already been acquired or authorized. For example, if you're using a gift card or something similar to pay for parts of the order. So in this case, Ucommerce will automatically figure everything out and create the amount based on what's already on the order. And that's actually all we need to do. Now Ucommerce will figure out the rest, and let's try to see if it works on the storefront. So let's build the solution and check it out. All right, so our payment page has loaded, and we now have the ability to select between the available payment options. I created my payment page in the CMS, so I have that ready here, and it matches up with the controller where we created the logic. So here it will show me the options available. Remember that this is also filtered based on your billing address and your shipping address. So the back office users have the ability to control what customers can pay with what payment option. So it's filtered based on that, and you can see that in the previous video, just like we showed you how to control that in the back office. So now there's just left to select what payment option that I want to use. Both account and invoice in this case are not connected with any gateway, so it will just serve as a invoicing kind of payment. So there will be no redirection, and Ucommerce will take care of all that automatically. Of course, we do not redirect payment just yet, but the payment here will be associated with the order and stored for later use. So once we're ready to check out, Ucommerce will identify it and send the request to the payment gateway. Unless we, of course, go back and redo our choice, that's also a possibility. So, onto the preview page, which has not been created, so I'll get yet another 404 page where we need to build up the preview page before we can actually do the checkout. And that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and see you in the next one.